The human officer named Daniel had expected many strange outcomes from serving on the diplomatic fleet, but this was not one of them. He had not anticipated standing in the grand throne hall of the Helian Empire, surrounded by towering armored guards whose eyes glimmered like molten copper, while their queen regarded him with a gaze that could silence thunder. He had not expected that a small, well-meaning gesture on his part would be interpreted as a formal proposal of union. And he certainly had not expected her to lean toward him with regal composure and whisper a single word that changed everything. Finally, even then he did not understand why she said it. He did not know that the queen, known across the stars as Lyria, had been waiting for something. Not for power, not for conquest, but for a human. Not a specific human, but rather one who would choose her without fear. One who would not tremble before her presence. One who would not flatten themselves in submission. The Helian Empire had met many humans, but none had ever treated her the way Daniel did. None had dared to bow with relaxed shoulders, smile with awkward warmth, and offer her a carved metal emblem as a sign of goodwill. In his culture, it was a diplomatic gift. In hers, it was the core symbol of a life bond. The guards gasped when Daniel held out the emblem. They reacted as if the air itself had cracked. Daniel thought he had committed some grave insult. He quickly tried to explain, only to find the queen stepping down from her throne and moving toward him with slow, controlled grace. She was tall, her posture proud, her armor elegant rather than intimidating. Her people viewed her as a living symbol of cosmic authority. Yet she approached him without arrogance. The hall fell silent as she stood before him. When she whispered the word, Daniel felt the weight of the entire court shift. He did not know what to say. He tried to explain the misunderstanding, but she raised a single hand. It was not a command to silence him. It was a gesture of clarity. He froze as she placed her palm over the emblem he still held. Her expression was one of acceptance, but also of relief. Later, he would learn that Helian tradition required calmness in the face of such a union. If he had panicked, she would have refused. If he had recoiled, she would have withdrawn. If he had tried to snatch back the emblem, it would have shattered whatever trust existed. But Daniel, frozen by confusion rather than fear, had simply remained still. And stillness, to our people, meant sincerity. The court erupted into formal chants. The guards tapped their spears upon the ground. Daniel looked from one face to another, realizing slowly that he had not insulted them. He had not threatened them. He had just become engaged to the queen of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. He felt dizzy. He opened his mouth to clarify, but the queen spoke first. Her voice flowed through the chamber like warm light. She declared that the union would usher in a new era of understanding between their species. She declared that fate had aligned their paths. She declared that Daniel had proven the courage and respect worthy of a Helian partner. Daniel nearly fainted, but he kept standing because collapsing in front of an entire alien court seemed like a bad idea. The queen turned to him and offered her hand. It was not a gesture of dominance. It was a gesture of partnership. When he took it, her hand was warm. After the ceremony that he had not agreed to, but could no longer avoid, the queen guided him through the palace corridors. The structure rose like crystal flame, each hall glowing with soft luminescence. Helian architecture felt alive, almost breathing with quiet power. Daniel kept glancing at her, unsure how to interpret the situation. She walked calmly beside him, not forcing conversation. Eventually, she spoke. Her voice was softer now, without the weight of a throne behind it. She told him that she knew he came from a culture with different customs. She explained that she understood misunderstandings happen between species. She assured him that if he wished to withdraw from the bond, he could request what her people called the path of reversal. It was not a punishment. It was a respectful dissolution. She would honor it without resentment. Her composure surprised him. There was no anger, no judgment, only sincerity. For the first time since entering the throne hall, Daniel could breathe again. He asked her why she whispered the word finally. Her steps slowed. She turned her head just enough that he could see a hint of vulnerability beneath her regal mask. She told him that many saw her title before they saw her. They saw the empire. They saw power. They saw responsibility. No one saw her as someone who could be chosen for herself. But when Daniel approached her with that emblem, his posture had been open, honest, and uncalculated. He offered it without fear or ulterior motive. She felt seen for the first time in years. Daniel did not know what to say. He admitted he had not known the emblem's meaning. She gave a small smile that reached her eyes. She said she suspected as much, but the intention behind the gesture mattered more than the accuracy. They walked through the palace gardens, filled with flora that shimmered like frozen starlight. Daniel asked if she truly believed a union with a human would be acceptable to her people. She said not only acceptable, but promising. Helians respected bravery, and Daniel's accidental proposal was considered a display of it. Humans had already earned admiration across the galaxy for their resilience and unpredictable spirit. A bond between the queen and a human symbolized a merging of strengths. Daniel admitted he still did not know how to process any of it. She told him he did not need to decide immediately. She would not pressure him. She asked only for honesty. Over the next few days, he remained in the palace as a diplomatic guest. The bond was not sealed, as sealing required mutual affirmation. He spent each day learning more about the Helian culture. Their society was built on harmony between power and compassion. They valued clarity in speech and sincerity in action. Their warriors were trained to protect, not dominate. Their scholars pursued understanding rather than control. Daniel realized that the empire's intimidating reputation came not from aggression, but from unshakable unity. He also learned about the queen herself. Lyria had ascended to the throne after proving her wisdom in resolving a conflict that could have destroyed 3 neighboring systems. She carried the weight of the empire with steady resolve, but she rarely showed her inner self to others. Yet with him she relaxed, speaking with surprising warmth. She asked about Earth. She asked about simple things like rainstorms, small cafes, and old books. She seemed fascinated by humanity's ability to dream even when struggling. Daniel found himself growing comfortable around her. Her presence was strong, but not overwhelming. She listened more than she spoke. She observed rather than commanded. When she smiled, it carried genuine emotion rather than formality. One evening she asked him to accompany her to the observatory hall. The ceiling was transparent, revealing the stars above like a river of silver light. The hall was quiet and sacred. She told him that the path of union, if he chose it, would tie his life to hers not through ownership, but through partnership. It would be a promise to face challenges together. He asked her if she wanted that. She held his gaze and said yes. Daniel's heart pounded, not out of fear, but out of sudden realization. She had not accepted his accidental proposal because of politics. She had accepted because she believed in the possibility of something real. And he, in turn, had begun to understand her not as a queen, but as a person who carried loneliness beneath her strength. They spent hours talking beneath the stars. She told him of her childhood. He told her of his first spaceflight and how frightened he had been. She laughed softly, a sound that filled the hall with warmth. He told her that her empire intimidated him at first. She admitted that humans intimidated her too, but for different reasons. She admired the way humans embraced chaos and still pushed forward with courage. When they returned to the palace entrance, she paused. She asked him again if he wished to walk the path of reversal. It was his final chance before the court assumed he accepted the bond. Daniel looked at her, at the queen who had shown him trust, patience, and honesty. He realized that he did not want to walk away. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the emblem, the same one that had caused the misunderstanding. He held it out with intention this time, not as a diplomatic gesture, but as a genuine choice. The queen inhaled softly. She placed her hand over his just as she had in the throne hall, but this time the touch was tender. Her eyes shined with emotion. The court celebrated the union in a ceremony that echoed through the palace. Flames of blue light danced around them, symbolizing balance. She stood beside him with pride. When he affirmed the bond, she whispered the same words she had spoken the day they met. Finally, from that day forward, he lived in the palace, learning the responsibilities of his new role. He was not expected to rule. He was expected to support her, to stand with her, to speak when she needed perspective. He accompanied her to council meetings, where his insights surprised even the highest advisors. His humanity brought angles they had never considered. His willingness to ask difficult questions made him invaluable. Helians respected him for his courage, not in battle, but in thought. He also became a symbol among humans. Instead of fear, humans now felt proud to be represented at the side of a ruler so respected. The bond between the two spec